This is very interesting. Okay, because now this is the same podcast with Joe Rogan and Shane Gillis. And Joe Rogan's effectively going to make the claim that flat earthers, flat earth theory, all that stuff, it stems from Christianity.
Right.
And up until 10 years ago, I would have said no, but it turns out there's actually a pretty big audience since the advent of the internet that has been buying into this. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But anyway, let's listen to the clip.
I saw the clip of like you and Eddie Bravo talking about flat Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's your argument there was like this is the type of conspiracy that fucks up the other conspiracies, and I believe that.
I don't. I'll take it a step further.
Yeah.
I think the reason why those things are so prevalent is not because they're enticing. I think people put them out there purposely to make other conspiracy theories seem stupid. And if they can give you enough fake evidence and enough like really eloquent people describing these things and why they're trying to hide this from you, and then they always attach it to religion. You know, flat Earth is always attached to religion.
Really?
Yeah. It's not atheist people that believe in flat Earth for the most part. I'm sure there's a few out there that do.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they believe that there's a firmament above Earth as described in the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
He goes into it, but I mean, you could see there's kind of a political sort of like that red flag gaslighting argument that he makes, but what I think we should focus on,
because it's a conspiracy theory wrapped into conspiracy theory wrapped into conspiracy theory. So as we have like conspiracy theory like Inception. Which
well, I agree with the first part, by the way.
I think he's right.
I think they do make up crazy conspiracy theories to make the ones that probably aren't conspiracy theories. You know, all right, sound delegitimized.
This is my tangent. Hold on, I'm going to do this anyways. First off, the CIA came up with the term conspiracy theory, which is my favorite thing ever. And my favorite thing ever is if I told you 10 years ago there's an island off the coast of Florida where a CIA or a Mossad agent is actually compromising people using underage boys and girls.
Can you say this in an Alex Jones voice?
Turning the frog gay, you know, all that kind of stuff. But no, if I had told you that, you'd say there's an island off the coast of Florida this is happening. You'd be like, there's no way guys like Bill Clinton, Bill Gates are ever going to be associated with something like that.
Well, don't forget Chris Tucker and
oh my gosh, I'm bringing it back real quick. But then you come up with something like Pizzagate. Mm-hmm. And you interject that into it, and you make it as crazy as possible. You go down the QAnon routes, so that way it takes away from the fact that there actually is an island off the coast of Florida where these things are taking place. So yes, I totally agree with you because we can see evidence of those things happening.
Right. I mean, look, like
a little off topic, but I just need to make
it's not that off. It's not that off topic. I don't mind pulling an audible here because this is where like we have to be discerning.
Yeah.
Right. Because I remember somebody told me that the FBI committed or convinced these two potheads to try to kidnap the governor of Michigan.
Oh yeah, Gretchen Whitmer.
And I thought it was like, I was like, okay, but they still kind of, well, it was so bad. It was like 14 people involved.
Yeah.
12 were FBI agents. Mm-hmm. And it was so bad and such entrapment that one of the jurors at the trial went up to one of the guys and gave him a hug and said, I am so sorry for what the FBI put you through. And it's like, that sounds like a conspiracy. And if I say that to somebody who doesn't know, they're going to go, well, you believe in flat Earth too? It's like, no, this really happened. This really happened, just like Epstein Island. And it's like, so I understand that point.
Right.
Right. But I think what we were supposed to discuss
bring it back.
Was flat Earth being associated with religion and Christianity.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I actually remember learning about as a kid was that Christopher Columbus was going to travel around the world to India. Mm-hmm. And his crew was concerned that they would fall off the earth. Well, come to find out, that was completely false, that they did not believe that. It comes from a book that was just a story by Rip Van Winkle, who said he had artistic rights to it. He was having fun with it and stuff like that. It wasn't actually historical documents. And now, because of that charge, people had to go in and research the documentation around it, and it turns out the crew was actually concerned that they wouldn't have enough food to get to Japan in time. And they just didn't know the New World existed, right? They knew it was round. They just didn't think that they had enough food to make it to Japan. And so nobody ever believed that. There's like 2 people who were Christians in the past that supported flat Earth, sort of in that Enlightenment period when they tried to say that Christians believed in flat Earth, and both of them were actually considered heretics. They had all sorts of insane beliefs. And so it's not true. That's never been a thing that Christians believed.
I'm sure there's always been a minority. I'm sure someone can peel something out of somewhere. And that's, you want to know what, that's fair, that's fine. But this interpretation, because they're taking it from, like he mentioned, from the Old Testament, and they're going into the firmament above the sky. So there's a description that appears in the Genesis account that goes through how the world was ordered. And with that in mind, it's the same people that take the 7-day creation story literally in the sense that it had to be 24-hour days. Now, could the Lord make the world and the universe and everything in it within 7 days?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely he could. But one of the things that they don't understand is this is poetic creation literature, ancient cosmology, if you will, that was written as Yahweh's difference between the gods that the Jewish people were encountering in that time. They were saying that he is greater than Molech. He is greater than Asherah. He is greater than the gods you know, because they too have a flood story. They too have a creation story. They too often have a garden as well. And what they're doing is they're comparing and contrasting and giving the truth of Yahweh and his creation. And they're going about it in such a way that the cultures around them understand. So, for example, if the sun doesn't show up on day 1 and doesn't even show up on day 2, there's just light. And then there's the things in the sky, the objects in the sky, the stars in the sky. Well, how could it be a 24-hour day? Does everything fall apart? No, you have to understand and look at what you're reading is to orient you to the time and space that those people are in, and to give poetic understanding to how the Lord went about creating our universe.
Yeah, I mean, look, in Western culture, we look at things like math and logic and things like that. In Near Eastern
Genesis
culture,
is not a textbook.
It was very much storytelling. I think that we should maybe take a moment and kind of talk about how, unfortunately, especially with the internet, there is a trap that has been laid, and there are a lot of people that are Christians that are buying in the flat earth. Now, some of that comes from because our government has lied to us about a lot of things. We talked about, and maybe we should have talked about this. Like, they had all these conspiracies that we found out are true, right? And so now it's like, well, maybe they're lying about all this other stuff. But I would take it a step further. So you mentioned these are the people that will take the Genesis account hyper literal. And it's okay. God could have done those things. Yeah. I'm not saying he couldn't. I would take it a step further in their logic of taking things super literal. Like, I can't remember where it is in the Old Testament, but it talks about the earth being God's footstool. So the flat earthers literally created a footstool that has a dome over it, and the earth is in there. And the armies that came from the four corners came from outside of this ice wall, right? The Babylonians in Iraq came outside the ice wall, right? But if you're going to take it that literal, then Jesus is also bread. Is Jesus literally bread?
It's just standing on turtle's back, and it's turtles all the way down, man. Like, there comes a point where people pick and choose what they consider to be metaphor, what they consider to be a story. So if you cherry pick one part of it, it's God's footstool. Well, that's an interpretation to saying that it is beneath his feet. He is in control. He has ultimate authority and power. That's the idea. I'm going to make your enemies a footstool to you, for your feet. It's the idea that God is above and in control. And it's the same thing with the 7-day creation. Is he really telling us the order of how he did things, in a sense, to also lead us to Sabbath? Is there more in this story than when we're unpacking it, and we're missing the message completely because we're so hung up on the fact that maybe the sun doesn't appear till later, so how could it be 24-hour days? So it's one of those things that, are we taking the author and understanding them in the context and the message that they're sending?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think and I really actually want to talk a little bit more about why we shouldn't get hyper-focused on things like this and how it interferes with the gospel. But I do want to give this justice, because I do have just logically guys that believe this. It's so hard because there are people who maybe they would be open to the gospel, and you start talking about flat earth, and there's somebody who's taken a plane ride to, say, Japan, and they saw the moon flipped upside down, or the star is now upside down, which shows that it's around, or like they know for a fact. Maybe they were on the Red Bull launch in the space. You know what I mean? Like maybe they were part of that, right? So I mean, again, it's like, and then how many people would have to be on this conspiracy? What, 400,000 pilots, every single person involved in astronomy or satellites, or I mean, it's just crazy. And I think the problem is that when you take this type of stance, and people do this with a lot of things, and I'm guilty of it too, but it interferes so much with the gospel because we're there to witness to people about Jesus Christ. And if we start going in the flat earth or whatever, tongues even, like all of those things, it really inhibits, it hinders our ability to be good witnesses and introduce people to Jesus.
We really should do a series on tongues and spiritual gifts, because that'd be an excellent one too. Because what you're saying is true, is someone takes something that is out of context and then they make it a hill they're going to die on. Mm-hmm. And you go, oh, well, everything's out with the bathwater now. So totally agree. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump to the next one. Maybe we'll do something. And by the way, just real quick, Mike Winger has a video on flat Earth, and he doesn't give opinions like we did on whether or not it's true, but he does kind of disprove that the Bible is not suggesting that it's flat Earth. So if you're somebody who has this list of scriptures on your mind that you're like, well, what about this and this and this and this? Go ahead and watch that video. I think he does a really good job. So if you like that video, you can watch another one right here. And if you want to see the full podcast, you can click right here. And as always, 25% of all proceeds go to missions, and you can always check us out, disciples.us.